Alright, what's up guys? So when I was watching some YouTube today, I had this video pop up on my recommended, and it was made by some channel called ProGuides, and they apparently had 5 super insane tips that they used to climb to Immortal. So since I've solo queued to Immortal and Radiant on multiple accounts, I'll put some screenshots by the way, but since I've solo queued all the way to the highest rank in the game, I feel like I know what I'm talking about. So after watching this video, almost everything they said is complete bullshit and will just make you lose rather than win. Except for the first tip here, actually. The first tip they talked about positive mentality, but alright, cool bro, stay positive, yeah. But in terms of actual gameplay and what you should do, it's all bullshit. Everything they said was wrong, and I'm really surprised that this video has 50,000 views. I don't know, I don't want to be like a douche and call out these guys, but I just feel like if you're gonna make this type of video, you should know what you're talking about. But anyways, I'm gonna just shut up and show you their tip they said right here, which was one-tricking agents. So yeah.
Strengths. If you're more comfortable taking the lead or opening up early kills for your team, a duelist is a great pick. Maybe you like lurking more and holding down sites as an anchor, then a sentinel could be a great pick as well. Lastly, those of you who are looking for more of a mixed bag, any of the controller and initiator agents are very flexible and can mold to different styles. Once you've found an agent that you feel the most comfortable with, now it's your job to start locking that agent in as much as possible. For me, Sova has been a big catalyst in my climb to Immortal and above. When I previously played whatever agent I felt like, or I chose my agent based on what other people played, I ended up playing worse and I lost more games in the long run. Don't make the same mistakes as me. Find that agent you're comfortable with, and give yourself the confidence to auto-lock that agent whenever you're in agent select.
Bro, what the fuck did this guy just say? He really just told you guys to just auto-lock nation. Okay, whatever. So, I'm gonna just hop in game and show you guys what I mean and what can go wrong by auto-locking the agent every time. So, I just loaded into the game on one of my alt accounts. I think it's Diamond 3. Yeah, it's Diamond 3. I haven't really played on it, but I'm gonna go to the agents tab and show you guys why insta-locking is the worst thing you can do, especially in lower ranked games. So, yeah. Okay, so basically we have all the agents in play Valorant. So there's duelists, controllers, sentinels, initiators, all that stuff, right? So what this guy said was you should find an agent you're comfortable with and always try to insta-lock it. So what I've noticed is a lot of people try to insta-lock duelists because A, they're fun as fuck to play, and B, they see people like Tens and Ace do that. But what I'm trying to tell you guys is if you're really trying to rank up, you should always learn how to play more than just the duelist. Even if you're comfortable with the duelist, let's say your team needs a sentinel or smokes, you should always go sentinel or smokes over Jet or Reyna. So if you're comfortable with these agents, what you should do is you should expand your experience on agents. You should try to learn Breach, Cypher, Killjoy, Omen, Brim, especially the controllers and sentinels. Aim to learn those even if you're comfortable with duelists, because let's say you load into ranked, right? And 2 of your teammates chose Jet and Phoenix, right? You could either go Raze or Reyna, or you could try to take one for the team and go smokes, like Omen or Brim. Because if you don't have smokes, right, you're going to lose the game. You're most likely going to lose the game. Because smokes allow you to take the site, prevent people from going into the site, block off angles, all that good stuff, right? So if you don't have smokes and you want to win, you always want to know how to go smokes, just in case your team decides they don't want to go smokes. Because not everyone is like you guys. Not everyone wants to rank up and grind. Some people are just playing for fun, right? So they'll go duelists. But sometimes you might have to be the player that has to take the hit and go smokes. And same can be said for Sentinel. You want to learn how to play Cypher and Killjoy even if you're not comfortable with them. If you're not good at Cypher, maybe you can try Killjoy, vice versa. But you want to have some experience on all these types of agents, because same thing with smokes. If you don't have Sentinel, you have a higher chance of losing, because Sentinels can hold your flanks and they make sites a lot harder to take as defenders. So same thing. If your teammates go Reyna or Raze and no one wants to go Sentinel, you might have to go Sentinel. Even if you're more comfortable on Duelist, you have to just take the hit and go Sentinel or smokes, because without those, you're not going to win, straight up. If you really care about ranking up, you'd learn how to play more than just duelists. Even for me, I'm really comfortable on duelists, like most players are, but just because you're comfortable on duelists doesn't mean you should only play duelists. Because this ProGuides guy thinks, okay, find the character you're most comfortable with, yada yada, but sometimes you have to learn more than just that in order to win. It's not going to always be, okay, I'm just going to lock duelist and win. You're going to have to learn more characters and force yourself to be comfortable with them so that your team has a higher chance of winning. You can't just play for yourself. And he also mentioned that, okay, you should have backup options just in case your character gets locked, but you should instead focus on A, what my team needs, and B, what I'm most comfortable on. So if your team needs smokes, go smokes. If your team needs sentinel, go sentinel, even if you're more comfortable on other characters, because it's not just an individual game, it's a team game. You need certain abilities to win the game, and some of those abilities are smokes and the abilities these sentinels have. So that was kind of a long rant, but just don't insta-lock, bro. Like, don't be those players that just insta-lock duelists and don't do anything. Like, I just think that you guys should really learn how to play more than just duelists and focus on well-rounding yourself and forcing yourself to be comfortable in different types of roles. So yeah. So we just talked about why insta-locking is definitely not an insane tip to climb down world. And the next tip this Valorant Pro channel has to say is you should always Ferrari Peek. Or apparently Ferrari peeking is the best peeking method. So if you don't know what Ferrari peeking is, it's basically white peeking, and I'm going to just show you guys what this guy has to say before I hop in the server and show you why it's wrong. So
we could create an entire video on just peeking. However, in this video, I'd like to cover one of the best peeking techniques when you know you want to fight someone and you think there is someone holding the angle that you will be peeking. Some people call it the Ferrari Peek, as it's extremely fast and can catch many players off guard. Couple this with inherent peeker's advantage and ping delay of online games, and you can frag someone before they even have a chance to react to your swing. Essentially, if you're close to a wall and swing wide, the player holding that angle will have less time to react to you peeking that angle. On the flip side, if you swing from the farthest position away from the wall, your character model will not come out as fast and enemies will have a much easier shot to land.
okay, so Ferrari Peek, don't do this. Like, just stray away from this, especially if you're trying to climb out of like iron or like silver. So I'm gonna just hop in a server real quick and just actually explain why this is really stupid. This Ferrari peeking, what this guy means is that, or what he tells me to do is that he wants me to go close to this wall and swing out wide like this, right? So let's pretend there's a guy there and I'm about to wide peek. By going close to this wall, as I'm in the motion of wide peeking, like right here, in these couple of milliseconds when I'm showing my shoulder, what's happening is he sees my shoulder before I could see him. So my right shoulder right here, it's exposed to all of that, and all I can see is this wall. So what that means is, in those couple of milliseconds when I'm about to peek, when my shoulder's exposed, if there's an opper or a rifler posted on this specific angle, he'll just shoot at my shoulder. And all I can really see is the wall right here. And obviously, you know, it's one specific or one continuous motion, right? So it's going to be a hard shot for him, but it's still giving him that opportunity, right? But instead, what you can do is you can peek farther back from the wall. And what that does is it basically makes it so that you see him at the same time he sees you. Whereas over here, he sees you for a couple of milliseconds before you can see him. And even though, you know, it's a couple of milliseconds, that can make the difference in a gunfight. So this peeking away from the wall thing has been preached by like many FPS players. Like even in CS, all the pros peeked away from the wall, and even in this game. It's just, it makes the gunfight more fair. Because like I said, if there's a guy like posted on you right there, he sees you at the same time you see him. But here, you're giving him those couple of milliseconds of time to react. And even if it's a wide peek, like if it's an opera, you're fucked. It's just a reaction time shot for him. And another thing about that is by wide peeking, you're also forcing yourself to sit in the middle of the open. So let's say I have my cover right here, you know, I'm hidden from the opponent and I see someone there. By wide peeking, I'm putting myself away from the cover. So that means that I have to take the gunfight. And if I have to take the gunfight, my aim has to be good. Because let's say I whiff a little, or if I miss my shots, I can't just run back here to safety. Nah, bruh, you ain't getting back there. You're just gonna die while running back because you're so far out from there. So if you want a wide peek, you have to make sure your aim is good, because it's literally just all aim. You wide peek, you're in the middle of the open. There's no more like, oh, I can just fall back, or oh, my teammates can help me. No, it's just you hitting your shot. So that means you have to have good aim. And more often than not, if you're trying to climb out of these lower ranks like iron, silver, bronze, yada yada, even diamond, your aim isn't going to be the best, if I'm going to be completely honest. Like, if you're in these low ranks, you're going to try to work on your aim first before you can do this. And I don't know, I just think it's a recipe for disaster, because if your aim isn't good, like, your aim just can't be average. It has to be good to hit this, since, like I said, you're putting yourself out in the open. That's why you only see, like, Radiants or pros, or, like, YouTube highlights. That's where you usually see wide peeks. It's because their aim is good, because they're Radiant or they're pro. But if you're just an average player trying to grind out, your aim is going to be like those players you see on YouTube or in pro matches. Your aim is going to be worse than them. So before you implement wide peeking in your gameplay, you want to try to better your aim and better your reaction time before you do it, or else you're just gonna whiff, or you're gonna like mess up your shot and you're just gonna die because you can't fall back. And another time you could try using wide peeking, if at all, like I use it sometimes in ranked, and I use it when, like, let's say I have my teammate right here and I'm right here. I'll tell him to ping pong or double peek. That's what it's called. And basically what that means is the guy closer here will do something called a shoulder peek, and that's when you just show your shoulder, like you barely show your shoulder and fall back so that he can't kill you. And what that does is, if there's a guy right here, it'll throw him off guard because all he'll see is your shoulder. And while he's thrown off guard, you can just wide peek like this and hit your shot with your aim because he's thrown off guard from the guy's shoulder peeking right there. But, you know, that's like the only scenario you should try to implement it in. Or you could do it when you know there's one guy right here for sure who's still going to be there. But I really think that you should just try to do something called a narrow peek. Like I said, just peeking farther back from the wall and peeking like to the point where you could go back to cover if you whiff. Like, let's say there's a guy C-long again. Instead of wide peeking, what I can do is I can peek narrowly like this, take a couple shots, and then fall back. Because by taking a couple shots and peeking out a little, I can just fall back and I won't have to commit to the gunfight. I won't have to just force myself to hit my shots or die. I can just peek a little out so that I can quickly fall back to cover if I miss, or I can just quickly kill him and fall back so I don't get traded. That's what's good about narrow peeking. So, like I said, try to avoid wide peeks until your aim is really good, and just focus on peeking away from the wall and narrow peeking so that you can fall back to cover. And that's pretty much it. Just try to narrow peek, don't wide peek. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. It's definitely not the best wide peeking method. I think the reason he's saying that is because he sees people in Radiant and Pro do it, but the reason they do that is because their aim is really fucking good. But the audience he's trying to target isn't those pros. They aren't those Radiants you see on YouTube. You guys are just like the average Valorant players who are in low rank, so you're not going to have that level of aim to achieve those wide peaks. So just try to stay away from them, and just to remember, yeah. Alright, so we just talked about how wide peeking and Ferrari peeking is definitely not an insane tip. So the next tip after that is, this guy said you should jump spot for info, and at surface, this is a really good tip. I use this, a lot of people use this is really good. But the technique he says in which you should jump peek is not the best for lower level players, because he says, oh, if you're iron you should do this. Like, no, because more often than not when I'm smurfing or when I'm just playing with my friends, my school friends, I'll see people try to jump peek like this and they'll just fuck it up and they'll end up just dying. There's a lot more safer ways to do this. I don't know why he didn't try to teach those, because they're a lot more simpler and safer, especially for lower level players, because this requires movement and like you have to have a good sensitivity to like quickly flick back and stuff. But I don't think that a newer leveled player would be able to do this, since it's just it requires a lot of like mechanics. So I'm gonna just show you what he means, and I'll hop into server and show you why this is wrong and you should try doing a simpler approach.
It's not an overly difficult mechanic to do, but it is a very important aspect of the current meta. Let's start with why it's so useful. Simply put, the closer you are to a wall, the earlier an enemy will see you before you're able to see them. So by jump spotting close to the wall, you show a small part of your body and distort the player model to make the shot extremely difficult to capitalize on. Additionally, the minimap shows enemy players even before you can visibly see them with your character model. You can use this to jump spot enemies without even visibly seeing them. This technique is extremely useful, as you don't always have the luxury of utility or extra help from teammates to help spot if someone is holding the angle you want to peek. So by doing a proper jump peek and looking at your minimap, you can often see if there is actually an enemy holding that position. The easiest way to do this is by holding the W key and jumping with that momentum and full swing back around with your mouse movement. Let me quickly showcase the easiest way to do this that doesn't require any counter movement, which is something I could cover in a more advanced guide. By jumping forward and dragging your mouse movement in a 180-degree motion, you essentially jump in a half circle motion. You can do this on both the offensive and defensive side.
Okay, so I'm gonna just go into server real quick and show you some alternatives you can do, because if there's an opera posted up, it's a really easy shot to hit, especially if you're like iron, like this guy says. You're probably gonna mess this up, so I'm gonna show you some easier alternatives. And instead, just try doing easy. So by jump peeking or shoulder peeking, right? This guy's talking about making a motion like this or like this. So what that does is it shows your shoulder to the guys at C-long, and what happens is if you're at C-long, right, and you see their shoulder when they're shoulder peeking or jump peeking, it'll register you on the map for the guy that's doing the motion. So let's say I do this, and I see some guy C-long. So since they saw my shoulder, it'll mark them on the map and say, okay, there's a guy here. And that's really good because it gives you info without actually peeking out and committing to a gunfight, and you don't really need teammates to make this play. But the problem with this is it's good, but not for lower level players. Instead of making this super awkward motion where you go like that, what you could do is, like I said, you can go close to the wall where they could see you before you can see them, and you can just quickly show your shoulder like this and go back. Just spam your A and D key like this. You don't want to go out too wide or else they'll kill you, but you can just quickly go like this, barely move your character out so that only your shoulder will be showing for a very small fraction of time, and that'll register them on the map if they're there. So why I say do this is because this whole motion right here, or like this whole motion is it's not hard, but like I said, since this is catered towards like lower level players like iron, bronze, or silver, it's not really good because if there's an opper and let's say you fuck it up, boom, shot, they kill you. Because when I'm like smurfing or playing with school friends, right, what I'll notice is I'll see players try to make this movement or this type of movement and they'll just peek out too far because it's harder to control it because you're in the air. And if I have a rifle, if I'm feeling it, I'll hit that shot, or if I have an op, I'll definitely hit that shot. Like, I cannot tell you the amount of times I've seen someone fuck up this like shoulder jump peek right here. So instead, focus on a more easier technique like this. Like, I'm not saying this tip is like utter dog shit, but I just think that like he's not giving you the most like suited advice considering your skill levels, because like I said, if you're an iron or bronze player, you might mess it up since your movement might not be that good. So you can instead just try doing easier movements like this, which will minimize the amount of like mechanics you have to do this, and it'll still accomplish the same goal. So yeah, try this instead of doing this super awkward motion like that. If you can do it, good. But in my opinion, for lower level players, this is just a simpler and easier way to do it without fucking it up. Now that we covered the topic of Ferrari peeking, I'm gonna go into the next one this guy talked about, which is calling a player around your ultimate. So this is sort of like the last tip, in which like this is a really good idea and it's something you should be doing at any rank, but the problem is it's not just your ultimate. There's more that you could be doing. So I'm gonna just elaborate after you could watch this guy talk about it. So yeah.
Difference between your team winning or losing a round. For those of you who aren't sure how they'd want to approach a round, a big starting point is communicating how you would like to use your ultimate. You can use it to break open a site, fake a push, stall a post plant, or retake after a bomb is planted. These are 4 of the most common ways and require the least amount of creativity. For example, agents like Phoenix and Raze are great at opening up those situations and letting your teammates follow up afterwards. Ultimates like Brimstone, Sova, Breach, and Killjoy are great at helping your teammates push onto a site. Then you have more unique ultimates like Omen, which can be used to find info on where people are hiding on site, or it can be used to TP behind enemies and pinch them on site. These are just a few suggestions, but don't be afraid to be creative with how you use your ultimate. It is important to let your teammates know, because it can help you guys stay on the same page and win the round. Let's split B. I'll ult from here, trade me on site.
Okay, so like I said, this is a good idea and you should definitely be doing this, but I don't know why he like had to dedicate a whole 2 minutes to explain this. Like, no fucking shit. No shit, Sherlock, I'm gonna have to do this either way. But the problem is, he's acting like, oh, I should only be calling a player around my ultimate. Like, no, you have so many more abilities. Each character has abilities for a reason. If you really want to win ranked, you want to be able to call every round what you're going to do with your abilities and try to like work up a strat around that. This isn't a game where you could just run around and tap heads. You have to be able to work as a team. That's why there's characters with abilities. So this has really nothing to do with the video, but this guy should like branch off more and talked about how every round you should be using your abilities to like achieve something. So let's say I'm Sova, right, and I want to like rush garage. I'll be like, okay guys, I'm gonna drone through garage and then I'll dart C long on Haven for you guys. This isn't just like, oh, I have a Sova wall, I'm only gonna call when I have a Sova wall. Like, this is such like a general like piece of advice, but this guy's acting like it should be only called around your ultimate. Like, no, you don't need an ultimate to make a strat. You can use your basic abilities, and that's one of the biggest things I've noticed from Radiant to like when I'm smurfing in Diamond or something. When I'm smurfing, like, I'll see nobody talk at all, no one makes strats, and if they have an ultimate, they'll just be like, I'm ulting out it. But in Radiant, what happens is everyone's always calling. They'll be like, okay guys, I'm gonna drone through C, Omen smoke this and this, and blind, I'm gonna dash in. He's not just gonna call when he has an ultimate. So you should always be calling no matter what, even if you have an ultimate, even if you don't. It doesn't matter. And I know it's not really his fault, but it's just like, if you're gonna make a video like this, like, you want to be able to branch out more and really give like down-to-earth advice. Like, this is like such a like no shit Sherlock type of advice here. Like, yeah, if I have an ult, I'm gonna tell my team what I'm doing, bro.